Close your eyes. Picture Mary Magdalene. What do you see? You see this: the sinner, the outcast, the woman of the night, weeping in gratitude as she is saved from her life of shame. You see the repentant prostitute, an eternal symbol of forgiveness and of female weakness. For 2,000 years, this is the story we have been told. This is the Mary Magdalene carved into our culture, our art, and our theology. Now open your eyes, because what if I told you none of it is true? What if this entire image, the most famous story of redemption in the world, was a lie? A deliberate, calculated lie, crafted by one of the most powerful men in history to bury a truth he found intolerable. What if the real Mary Magdalene was not a prostitute, but a leader? Not a sinner, but a visionary? Not a follower, but the single person Christ trusted with his most profound, secret teachings? In 1945, a farmer in the Egyptian desert unearthed a sealed jar. Inside was a collection of forbidden scriptures buried for 1,600 years to escape the book burnings of the early church. Among them was a text that could shatter Christian history: the Gospel of Mary. This text reveals the truth. It describes a power struggle that took place just days after Christ's resurrection. A conflict between the man who would build the church, Peter, and the woman who truly understood the Christ. This is not a story of a prostitute finding forgiveness. This is the story of an apostle being silenced. So why? Why did the church bury her true identity? Why did they systematically destroy her reputation, turning an apostle into an outcast? Because to build an empire of men, they first had to erase the one woman who held more authority than any of them. So, how did the lie begin? If the Bible never calls her a prostitute, who did? The smoking gun of history points to one man: Pope Gregory the Great. The year is 591 AD. The Roman Empire has collapsed, and the Church is struggling to bring order to a dark age. Pope Gregory steps up to the pulpit in Rome to deliver a homily. In this one sermon, he will single-handedly rewrite Mary's identity for the next 1,400 years. With the full authority of his office, Gregory makes a stunning declaration. He proclaims that 3 separate women in the Gospels are in fact the same person. 1. Mary Magdalene, the woman Christ cured of 7 demons and who was the first witness to his resurrection. 2. Mary of Bethany, the sister of Lazarus, who sat at Jesus' feet as a disciple. And 3. The anonymous sinful woman from the Gospel of Luke, who crashed a dinner party to wash Jesus' feet with her tears and dry them with her hair. There is zero biblical evidence for this. No text suggests these women are connected. But Gregory's word is law. He declared, quote, "She whom Luke calls the sinful woman is the Mary from whom 7 demons were cast out." And just like that, it was done. The sinful woman was widely assumed to be a prostitute. By fusing these 3 women, Gregory officially demoted Mary Magdalene. She was no longer the brave apostle who stayed at the cross when the men fled. She was no longer the chosen witness to the resurrection. She was and would be forever the repentant prostitute, a character assassination, as modern scholars call it. Was this just a simple mistake? A theological mix-up? To believe that is to ignore the political reality of the 6th century. Gregory needed to build a unified church, a church built on a clear, male-only hierarchy, a church based on obedience to priests and bishops. The last thing he needed was a competing model, a story of a female leader who received revelation directly from Christ, with no priest or bishop required. The story of the sinner was the perfect weapon. It didn't erase her. She was too popular for that. Instead, it domesticated her. It turned a powerful leader into a safe, submissive follower. Her power was neutralized, her authority stripped, and her true story buried under a mountain of shame. The lie worked perfectly. For 1,400 years, the world bought it. It was not until 1969, less than 60 years ago, that the Catholic Church quietly corrected the error, issuing a statement that there was no basis for identifying Mary Magdalene with the sinful woman. But the damage was done. The myth was already more powerful than the truth. While Gregory's lie was becoming dogma in Europe, a jar of truth lay buried in the dry sands of Upper Egypt. The year is 1945. A local farmer named Muhammad Ali al-Saman is digging for fertilizer near the cliffs of Nag Hammadi. His spade strikes something hard. It is a large sealed clay jar, nearly 3 feet tall. Thinking it might contain gold, he smashes it open. Inside, there is no gold, just 13 ancient books bound in leather. They are written in Coptic, the language of the ancient Egyptian Christians. What Muhammad al-Saman did not know was that he had just stumbled upon the most important biblical discovery of the 20th century. This was a Gnostic library, a collection of the very books the Roman Church had declared heretical and ordered to be destroyed 1,600 years earlier. This was the intellectual ammunition of a version of Christianity that lost the war for orthodoxy. These texts had names that shook the foundations of faith: the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Philip, and the most explosive of all, the Gospel of Mary. These weren't copies of copies. These were originals, hidden away by monks in the 4th century to save them from the fires of the official church, which was then solidifying its power under Emperor Constantine. The discovery at Nag Hammadi was a time capsule. It was a snapshot of the original spiritual conflict, and for the first time since Pope Gregory's sermon, Mary Magdalene was about to speak for herself. The surviving text of the Gospel of Mary is small, with several pages missing, torn out by time, or by angry hands. But what remains is devastating. The scene is not in a church or a synagogue. It is in a private room after Christ's resurrection and ascension. The remaining disciples are gathered, but they are not joyful. They are terrified. They are lost. The Savior has left them, and they are afraid to go out and preach, worried they will suffer his same fate. The text says they were weeping, saying, "How shall we go to the Gentiles and preach?" The male apostles, the future pillars of the church, are paralyzed by fear and doubt. Then one person speaks. Then Mary stood up. She greeted them all. "Do not weep or be sad," she said, "for his grace will be with you all and will protect you." She is the first to show courage. She is the one who comforts them. Peter, impressed, turns to her and says, "Sister, we know the Savior loved you more than any other woman. Tell us the words of the Savior which you remember, which we do not know." This is the bombshell. Peter himself admits Mary has a special, private revelation, that Jesus taught her things he did not teach them. Mary agrees, and what she reveals is not a simple parable. She describes a complex, mystical vision of the soul's journey after death. She speaks of ascending through different levels of hostile spiritual powers that try to trap the soul. She explains how to answer their challenges with gnosis, or knowledge, to pass them by and reach the final rest. This is not the simple faith of believe and be saved. This is deep, secret, mystical knowledge. This is gnosis. As she finishes, silence fills the room. The disciples are stunned. And then the conflict explodes. The man who would become the rock of the church attacks. Andrew, another disciple, speaks first, confused. "I do not believe the Savior said this. These teachings are strange." But Peter is not confused. He is enraged. He stands up and confronts Mary, not with a question, but with an accusation. He shouts, "Did he really speak with a woman in private rather than openly to us? Are we to turn around and all listen to her? Did he prefer her to us?" Read those words again. Did he prefer her to us? This is not a theological debate. This is raw human jealousy. This is a power struggle. Peter cannot stand the idea that Jesus would trust a woman with his deepest secrets. He sees his own authority and the authority of all the male apostles being threatened. The text says Mary simply wept. She said, "Peter, what are you thinking? Do you think I made this up in my own heart? Do you think I am lying about the Savior?" The tension is unbearable. The group is about to fracture. And then another disciple, Levi, steps forward to defend her. He turns on Peter, and his words are a thunderclap. Levi says, "Peter, you have always been hot-tempered. Now I see you contending against the woman like an adversary. If the Savior made her worthy, who are you to reject her? Surely the Savior knows her well. That is why he loved her more than us." He loved her more than us. Levi then urges them to be ashamed, to put on the perfect man as Christ commanded, and to go out and preach. They do, and the group separates. The Gospel of Mary is not just a spiritual text. It is a photograph of the crossroads of Christianity. It captures the exact moment the two futures of the faith collided. The Gnostic way of Mary, based on personal revelation, inner knowledge, and equality, and the Petrine way of Peter, based on apostolic authority, rigid hierarchy, and an all-male leadership. We know who won. Peter's church is the one that survived, and the first casualty of that war was the reputation of Mary Magdalene. The story you are hearing has been buried for 1,600 years. This is the history they did not want you to find. If you believe these forbidden stories must be brought to light, subscribe to our channel and join the search for the truth. The Gospel of Mary does not stand alone. Another text found at Nag Hammadi, the Gospel of Philip, confirms her unique and intimate status. This text describes the inner circle of Jesus, and it makes a statement that would be unthinkable to Pope Gregory. It says, "There were three who always walked with the Lord, his mother, her sister, and Mary Magdalene, the one who was called his koinonos." Koinonos. This is not a casual word. In Greek, it doesn't just mean friend. It means companion, partner, or consort. It implies a deep spiritual partnership, an equality of spirit. But the Gospel of Philip goes even further, into territory that has fueled centuries of speculation, from secret societies to the Da Vinci Code. It states, "And the koinonos of the Savior was Mary Magdalene." It then says that Christ used to kiss her often on the mouth. The text is damaged right at the key word mouth, but the implication is clear. The other disciples, again led by Peter, are scandalized by this. They ask Jesus, "Why do you love her more than all of us?" Jesus replies with a parable. "Why do I not love you like her? When a blind man and one who sees are both in the darkness, they are no different. When the light comes, the one who sees will see the light, and the one who was blind will remain in darkness." The message is a spiritual one. The kiss is a symbol of passing gnosis, of breathing knowledge into her. He loves her more because she sees. She understands the light. The others, even Peter, are still blind. This intimacy, this koinonos, is the source of her authority. She was his spiritual equal, his chosen successor for his deepest teachings. And that is the woman the church had to destroy. Now we have the full picture. Let's connect the dots. In one hand, we have the official story, Mary Magdalene, the repentant prostitute, a story invented 600 years after her death. In the other, we have the forbidden texts, written in the 1st and 2nd centuries by people who were part of these original movements, the Gospel of Mary and the Gospel of Philip. These texts show a woman who was the apostle to the apostles who comforted the men, the one loved more by Christ, the koinonos or spiritual partner, the sole recipient of his secret Gnostic teachings, a leader whose authority was directly and angrily challenged by Peter. The motive for the lie becomes crystal clear. The version of Christianity that won, the Petrine or Orthodox version, was a religion of structure. It needed to build an institution that would survive empires. To do that, it created a brilliant system called apostolic succession. The logic was simple. Christ gave the keys to the kingdom to Peter. Peter passed his authority to the next bishop of Rome, the Pope. That Pope passed it to the next, and so on. A clear, unbroken, all-male chain of command. Mary Magdalene is a bomb thrown in the middle of that system. Her authority doesn't come from a chain of command. It comes directly from Christ. It's based on personal, mystical revelation. You cannot build a church on Mary's model. You can only build a collection of individuals, each seeking their own gnosis. But you can build an empire on Peter's model. For the fathers of the early church, the choice was obvious. The Gnostic way was chaos. The Petrine way was order. To secure their Orthodox church, they had to eliminate the competition. They couldn't just disagree with the Gnostic Gospels. They had to destroy them. They declared them heresy and ordered them burned. But they couldn't burn Mary. She was in all 4 canonical Gospels as the first witness to the resurrection, the single most important event in the faith. So, they did the next best thing. If you can't erase, you discredit. They couldn't defeat her arguments, so they attacked her character. They buried the leader and created the prostitute. They silenced the apostle to the apostles and replaced her with a weeping, submissive sinner. It was the most successful smear campaign in human history.
For 1,600 years, the lie held. For 1,600 years, the real Mary Magdalene, the visionary, the partner, the apostle, was buried in the sand of Egypt and in the propaganda of an empire. Her voice was silenced, her gospel forbidden, her name synonymous with shame. When we look at this painting now, we no longer see a sinner. We see a victim. Not a victim of sin, but a victim of history. A victim of a power struggle that sacrificed her truth to build an institution. The discovery at Nag Hammadi was not just an archaeological find. It was an act of justice. It allowed Mary's voice finally to be heard again. Her true legacy is not one of shame, but one of profound spiritual courage. She was the one who understood. She was the one who did not flee. She was the one who had the courage to comfort the apostles and the authority to teach them. And she was the one who paid the highest price, her very identity, for the survival of a truth that the builders of an empire could not tolerate. The question, then, is not who was Mary Magdalene? The question is, now that we know the truth, why are we still so afraid of her? What do you believe? Was Mary Magdalene the victim of the greatest smear campaign in history? Or was the church justified in silencing her to create order? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and let us know which hidden history we should uncover next.